I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers. The Air Force interest in this problem has been due to our feeling of an obligation to identify anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States.
Oh my gosh, dude.
There's another one.
This could be it.
The highly anticipated hearing on Capitol Hill about unidentified flying objects, or UFOs.
An unusual House oversight hearing on what's being called unidentified aerial phenomena.
Both Republicans and Democrats investigating the supernatural.
Congress, which for years has avoided this topic of unidentified phenomena, will give it a big and bipartisan platform.
So this was different. This was different than anything that had ever come before. We had hearings on UFOs, but this was the first time in history you have people that are direct eyewitnesses, or in one case, an actual whistleblower coming forward in front of Congress. This was an official, on-the-record testimony under oath. You have Lieutenant Ryan Graves.
I'm a former F-18 pilot with a decade of service in the U.S. Navy, including 2 deployments in Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Inherent Resolve.
Lieutenant Ryan Graves is representing a whole bunch of pilots. Flight safety, this whole idea of near misses, things coming into our restricted airspace that are unknown to us. Then you have Commander David Fravor.
I'm a retired commander in the United States Navy. In 2004, I was a commanding officer of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, the world-famous Black Aces.
Commander David Fravor not only saw a UFO, he engaged a UFO for the United States military. So you've got these 3 people, last one being David Grush.
My name is David Charles Grush. I was an intelligence officer for 14 years. I was my agency's co-lead in unidentified anomalous phenomena and transmedium object analysis, as well as reporting to the UAP task force. I believe strongly in the importance of bringing this information before you. I am driven by a commitment of both to truth and transparency, rooted in our inherent duty to uphold the United States Constitution and protect the American people.
George Knapp and I fought hard with a lot of others behind the scenes to make sure that this hearing could happen. I'd like people to understand the gravity of this. It has been since the inception of the UFO problem. Nothing to see here, move on, all of that has changed. All right, let's do this. My name is Jeremy Corbell. I'm an investigative journalist and a filmmaker, and this has been an obsession of mine, is trying to get to the ground truth of what UFOs represent to humanity.
The 2 Musketeers, the front lines of UFO disclosure.
It is scary if that's true, Joe.
I think you guys are.
Jeremy's an interesting guy. He's actually been doing this for a long time. If you go back and look at, the content that's been being put out over the past, 15 or so years, Jeremy has been pursuing this topic doggedly for a long time and has been someone who has really kept the fires burning even when there wasn't a ton of media attention out there. And it's been really cool to see him team up with George Knapp, who's really kind of an OG of the UFO investigation world, and to see the work that they've been able to do together and to see them finally be able to take this across the finish line was a pretty cool moment.
how's it going?
Great.
All right, good. Who are you from?
From Politico. What are you expecting to come from out of the hearing?
Well, more transparency on this topic. It's long overdue.
Morning.
Morning.
Pleasure.
Nice to see you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I appreciate it.
You're one of the witnesses? Right?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thanks so much.
Three men who previously served in the military are set to speak publicly about what they saw in the sky and heard behind closed doors.
There's two big questions in this world. What happens when we die and are we alone? And the Pentagon's talking about one of them right now, so it's interesting as hell.
The great deal of interest here, the watch parties, the people who will be lining up early to try to go in person.
I think these three brave witnesses here, they took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and dadgummit, they're doing it.
What I personally witnessed myself was very disturbing.
The U.S. is in possession of, quote, non-human spacecraft.
UAPs, whatever they may be, may pose a serious threat to our military or civilian aircraft.
The incident was never investigated. None of my crew were ever questioned.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
Is there any indication that these UAPs are interested in our nuclear technology and capabilities?
Yes.
Let's get close. What was flashed? Mark bearing and range.
Were they human or non-human biologics?
Non-human.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
Do you have any personal knowledge of people who have been harmed or injured in efforts to cover up or conceal these extraterrestrial technology?
Yes. Personally.
Have anyone been murdered?
I have to be careful asking that question.
The gravity for what's going on with UFOs right now couldn't be more important. There's no going back from this, man. This is the moment that we define, are we gonna have this conversation or are we not? This is the first time you have people that are there that have the impetus to tell the American public the truth. So how did we get here? How did we get here today?
Pentagon's secret UFO program revealed. The military spending millions of dollars to look into UFO sightings and videos from American fighter pilots all being made public.
The remarkable admission by the Pentagon came as a result of reporting by the New York Times, which published a story of the mysterious UFO program over the weekend.
In 2017, two colleagues and I published this front-page Sunday New York Times piece revealing for the first time that the Pentagon was not out of the UFO business, as it had long claimed, but was really very much involved in tracking UFOs. The article broke the news that there was a secret unit, which we called ATIP, funded with $22 million in secret funding to track and investigate encounters between Navy jets and unknown objects that had been flying around carrier groups on the West Coast and the East Coast, and in some cases were seen churning underwater.
How surprised were you about this Pentagon program, a surprise program with a $22 million budget?
$22 million. This is the revelation that the conspiracy theorists have been looking for all along, that the government knows there are actually UFOs. Well, it's always impossible to know what the conspiracy theorists are thinking.
The head of the program, a man named Luis Elizondo, who had long intelligence history and credentials, had just submitted his resignation to the Secretary of Defense because he was being thwarted by superiors in the Pentagon.
It was about the craziest thing that's happened to the UFO community, because what we had here is we had some Pulitzer Prize winning journalists dropping this article, and so suddenly UFOs were something that were being talked about seriously, and the world kind of changed after that.
They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 miles from the west.
Tell us what the purpose of the program was and why it was so secretive.
The purpose of the program, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was really designed to do just that. From a national security perspective, identify those things that we see.
But there were those people, especially on the web, who tried to downplay and undercut the article. But the government never succeeded, really, in undermining the reporting we did. It didn't fully endorse it. It claimed at some points that Lou Elizondo was not who he said he was. We had checked him out thoroughly. We had his performance records. We had his whole intelligence history. So we knew who our sources were, and we'd vetted them thoroughly.
Lou is a real patriot. He's done some pretty powerful stuff when it comes to moving this dialogue forward, and sometimes at his own peril, at his own risk.
Do you believe that life from somewhere else came here?
There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
It was very, very eye-opening in terms of what was going on basically under our noses. We all thought UAP had been debunked years ago as rubbish, as tripe. We thought it was just like a, 60s or 50s issue of flying saucers and little green men from Venus.
So it was kind of an exciting story on many levels, and it drew a tremendous reaction.
The Pentagon now confirms the existence of a secretive UFO program tasked with investigating reports of unidentified flying objects.
We're alerting this morning about a Pentagon program that spent millions of dollars to look into UFO sightings.
The Pentagon ended funding, but the New York Times reports the program remains in existence.
And mainstream media quickly picked up on the story because we were treating it seriously at the New York Times. It gathered somewhat more gravitas and seriousness.
The articles in the New York Times 2017 removed the stigma on the topic of UFOs, which is why we're here today. Those articles open the door for the government and public that cannot be closed.
That 2017 article really popped the bubble for a lot of people.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
The videos that we ran on the New York Times website, the 3 videos of encounters between these Navy jets and these objects, it was sensational. The videos were among the most watched ever in the history of the New York Times.
Well, seriously, look at this thing. It's rotating.
The U.S. Navy has finally acknowledged that videos appearing to show UFOs flying through the air are real. The several videos they're talking about were recorded years ago by fighter pilots. Then in 2017, they were made public by the New York Times.
The Tic Tac, the gimbal, and the Go Fast UFO. Those 3 videos were kind of first exposure for people that we have these unidentifieds that are flying in restricted airspace.
I'd like to say that the Tic Tac object we engaged in 2004 was far superior to anything that we had on time, have today, or are looking to develop in the next 10 years.
All of this was on a clear day off the coast of California. This is not wartime nerves. This is not like pilot error. This is not some sort of glitch in the radar system. You've got a craft of unknown origin that shouldn't be there. Now that is a big deal.
These objects coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up. For those who don't realize, above 80,000 feet is space.
We talk about 80,000 feet. That's a real sensitive thing. Anything above 80,000 feet, we're talking about satellite hardware. That is some of the most protected assets the United States military has.
If the aircraft was armed, do you believe that your aircraft or any aircraft in possession of the United States could have shot the Tic Tac down?
I'd say no. The technology that we faced was far superior than anything that we had, and there's nothing we can do about it. Nothing.
My God.
video. It is incredible to see the mechanical rotation of this machine, and you can hear the pilots and their awe as they're watching this.
Dude, this is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. The whole thing, dude.
The gimbal incident, the recording on the AT FLIR system shows a single object that rotates. You hear the pilots refer to a fleet of objects that is not visible on the FLIR system. It just goes to show how serious this is and why this is such an important issue for our pilots and for our nation.
Navy pilots are the most trained observers we have. Millions of dollars are spent training these people. So if they say they've seen something, that counts for something special. And that's why the Navy videos were so important, because they captured electronically things that until then were just anecdotal.
That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is an LNS, dude. Well, if there's like that thing, it's rotating.
Here's the part that people don't know. There are 4 extra minutes to that gimbal footage. There's 4 extra minutes. The gimbal was not alone. There was a V formation of UFOs in front of it. Now, why has that not been released to the American and the global public? Why? We need to have this type of footage in the scientific community's hands. To cut footage off like that, that was a choice.
It's rotating.
So the Go Fast is like the trilogy, the Go Fast video. This is not a rare phenomenon. Pilots are passing, seeing, catching on radar, sometimes even locking on a daily basis with these unknowns that can outmaneuver our own craft.
The objects are performing maneuvers that are unexplainable due to our current understanding of our technology and our capabilities as a country, and that applies for the military as well.
We've had 14 near misses with aircraft. You're talking 50, 60, maybe $100 million aircraft with some of the best trained men and women in the air. That's serious, and that's in our airspace.
What percentage of UAP sightings, in your belief, go unreported by our pilots?
I would estimate we're somewhere near 5% reporting, perhaps.
They basically admitted there was nothing they could do if the craft they encountered turned out to be hostile. There was no way they could defend themselves. Now think of that as you look up into the sky. The Americans being the greatest superpower the Earth has ever known. You don't have dominance of your own skies, and the US Air Force does not want to admit that.
So now the conversation is being had. People started pushing to get more information out. The stranglehold on the UFO issue has always been with the intelligence agency. I have sources in every single agency. I'm not trying to brag about that. What I'm trying to do is put the fear of fucking God into people. That is fact. People are fed up. People are fed up with keeping the secret.
I actually want to ask about UFOs. Does the president believe in the existence of UFOs, and would he be interested in restoring funding for that program?
Somehow that question hasn't come up in our back and forth over the last couple days, but I will check into that and be happy to circle back.
One of the things you have as president is the access to all the information in the world, all the mysteries out there. And I was just struck in the last couple of weeks, we're reading more and more reports of Navy pilots seeing lots and lots of UFOs. Have you been briefed on that? What do you make of it?
I did have one very brief meeting on it, but people are saying they're seeing UFOs.
We have presidents making overt comments about the UFO phenomenon, how seriously they take it. There was a sea change. You've got everybody talking about it.
When it comes to aliens, there's some things I just can't tell you. But what is true, and I'm actually being serious here, is that there are There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are.
When I was president, we made every attempt to find out everything about Roswell. And we also sent people to Area 51 to make sure there were no aliens.
Another coffee drop moment for me was when Jimmy Kimmel showed some footage that I had obtained and released of military-filmed UAP to George W. Bush.
The first thing I would do if I was president is go right to the UFO files. I wonder if you've seen this video that has been verified by the Pentagon. Would you be surprised if we were visited by creatures from another planet?
Yeah.
You would be surprised.
Wouldn't you be?
Well,
Hell yeah.
They've been really hesitant to get specific about what exactly they've been briefed on. But, you know, they have been clear that something strange is going on, and it does sort of indicate that maybe there's some sort of a messaging shift going on behind the scenes.
The truth is, we have found through our reporting that presidents are not routinely briefed. Viewers might think that, oh, as soon as somebody becomes president, they're let into all the deepest secrets of the government, including UFOs. Well, that's not true. What we found in our latest reporting was that this information is the most deeply held secrets in the entire government, and that includes from top officials, including the President of the United States.
The U.S. government knows something unexplained is out there. The Pentagon has until late June to tell Congress in an unclassified report what it knows about unidentified flying objects.
One of the critical moments is when President Trump signed to make the Pentagon do a report about UFOs. And this was part of the Intelligence Authorization Act. And that was a big moment, that you had 180 days to put together a UFO report. This is a bombshell.
Do you expect to see real answers in this report?
Look, honestly, I don't think so, Jake. Look, it takes 180 days to do a report. It takes longer to remodel a kitchen in your house sometimes.
The long-awaited Pentagon report on UFOs has finally been released. Plenty of unidentified flying objects remain just that, unidentified and mysterious.
That UAP report was one of our first indications that this was going to be a marathon and not a sprint, and that there was a lot more work that needed to be done here. I mean, it was exciting because it was released, and it was released publicly, but it's only about 9 pages long, including the cover page and the appendix. It wasn't nearly the blockbuster that people were hoping for.
I was disappointed, like many other people, because the stories I had heard and that we picked up on in our reporting went way beyond that report.
A lot of it was just them sort of asking for more resources and more funding and talking about the problems that they were having in collecting this data.
U.S. government officials examined 144 reports of UAPs like these and still don't know what 143 of them were.
The report by the Office of National Intelligence found no evidence they came from outer space.
What did strike me is that the report said for the first time that these objects are most likely real. That was a big breakthrough. The government had not said that before. That was what the government was probably long afraid of, admitting that they didn't know what these things were.
Among the possibilities they considered, secret U.S. equipment, a foreign adversary's advanced technology, atmospheric conditions, debris in the air, or simply other.
This idea that the phenomenon itself, the UFOs, the physical manifestation of this, the craft, that it's some sort of black project or secret U.S. technology, it's bullshit. It's always been bullshit.
Oh my gosh! Look at it, it's beyond the tree. What is that?
We've talked to the best experts available, including the fighter pilots themselves who've gone up and seen these things and said that there is nothing that they're aware of that come close to the aerodynamic possibilities these things have.
Could these objects be spy craft from another country? What do you think?
The bottom line is that we don't know.
If it was Russia, they wouldn't be bogged down in this worthless war in Ukraine. If it was China, they would control everything we have, more so than they already do.
It's unimaginable because we've seen these things since the 1930s. So to think that, you know, the Chinese, who had a famine back in the 1950s, for instance, would have also had anti-gravitic craft that could display such capabilities, it's just unfathomable, really.
That is not what we're talking about, natural phenomenon. That kills me. It's like a distraction. But sure, people can see some natural weather phenomenon and misidentify it as unidentified until it's known. Sure, that can happen. It's not what we're talking about.
We're dealing with an actual physical object that shows up on radar and other weapons systems. I think we can safely rule those out as being atmospheric phenomena.
We're going against the wind. The wind's 120 miles from the west.
And these are our most highly trained observers. We train them for millions of dollars. We send them up against potential adversaries to protecting our country. They're not going to be easily hoodwinked by flying trash.
That's a mental gymnastics thing when you say other, right? I guess that's a good way to do it, you know, if you want to just be completely broad with it.
I think that's done to put people at ease, not to spark potential panic, because they don't know how the public's going to react. If you put it out there that there may be non-human intelligence, that's a major risk. It may upset a lot of people, unnerve a lot of people in institutions as well, such as churches.
I am as in the dark as you about what UFOs truly represent to humanity. I just know that we can exclude certain things. And once we exclude those things, those exotic possibilities, those are the ones that truly excite me. We know people misidentify things. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the important stuff, the other.
A report by this country's top intelligence officials acknowledges there have been 18 encounters in which so-called unexplained aerial phenomena demonstrate advanced technology.
This ended up being disappointing for a lot of people because it was only 9 pages long, and we all believe that the UFO problem, that it deserves more than that, but it was a huge step forward because it's acknowledged, it's right there in writing, it was something that was demanded, and it was followed through on. We've made leaps and we've made bounds since then, but this was a critical moment in how we got to where we are today.
The report states that some of these uncharacterized UAP appear to have demonstrated unusual flight characteristics and require further analysis.
From that Pentagon report all the way up to this important moment in Congress, we had momentum.
We begin with that historic UFO hearing on Capitol Hill today. As we just said, the bipartisan push for transparency, certainly decades in the making. The nation watched gripping testimony of UAPs and demands for greater transparency on this issue.
This was, I think, a chance for the public to hear what we as reporters had been hearing from experts like that for a long time.
Have you met with people with direct knowledge or have direct knowledge yourself of non-human origin craft?
Yes, I personally interviewed those individuals.
It was his duty, David Grush, it was his job at that time to look for UFO, UAP exploitation programs, legacy UFO programs. And damn, did he find it.
I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program.
It was an earthquake, and I can guarantee you that it's going to be documented in history books. 300 years from now, school kids are going to be learning about that hearing. For the first time, you got to hear in Congress from a whistleblower, and he is out there telling Congress that there are programs, illegal programs, that have been hidden from congressional oversight that relate to retrieval and reverse engineering of craft of non-human origin, and the pilots as well. That is earth-shattering.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
I was speaking to a source recently who was at that hearing when David Grush admitted, or alleged, that there had been non-human biologics retrieved from some of those craft. You could hear a pin drop in that room.
You've said that the U.S. has intact spacecraft. You said that the government has alien bodies or alien species. have you seen the spacecraft? I have to be careful to describe what I've seen firsthand and not in this environment, but I could answer that question behind closed doors.
David Grush spoke under oath. If he's lying, he's going to jail. Okay, so that's a really, really big thing, the fact that he spoke under oath.
It's one thing for the government to say, well, there's something out there, we're going to look into it, we'll get back to you people on that. That's not good enough. That still gives the U.S. government the ability to cover under this veneer of, well, we're just going to investigate. But if you get an acknowledgement that they've actually had possession of, I mean, let's get real here, alien tech, alien bodies, there's no way you can then say, well, we're going to look into this honestly. That's an admission they've been lying for a long time. That's an admission of truly the greatest conspiracy ever.
I'd like to thank everybody who was here, sticking through the entire hearing. If there's no further business, without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.
We are in the midst of what you can genuinely call is a revolutionary period. I am convinced that we are actually within the midst of a global revolution on many levels. You look at the UFO or UAP subject, and you see this, what I call insurgency happening from within. That over the last several years has resulted in much more information coming out on this and a much greater level of public conversation. And if it results in a genuine breakthrough, a real breakthrough, a meaningful one, in which some kind of genuine honesty is forced by government authorities, high-level government authorities, then you can call that a revolution, a disclosure revolution. We want to know what's going on, first of all, because this is big, it's important, it matters. We want to know. But B, it can have the ability, hopefully, to wake us up into the recognition that, hey, you've been lied to for 80 years. What else has been kept from you? You know, you're in a society where for so long has been the seat of lies. Like, we really have to understand, this is not a trivial thing. I don't think it's something where you can just take the broom and just sweep it up and put it in the dustpan and okay, everything's good now. I don't think that is necessarily possible. We may be dealing with some seriously deep structural issues here of secrecy and whatever else is going on in the truth here. It could be very difficult.
Congressman Tim Burchett is joining a growing chorus of lawmakers asking the Pentagon to release what it knows about unidentified anomalous phenomena, also known as UAPs.
Well, first of all, I don't trust the U.S. government, and I'm a United States congressman. I think both parties, frankly, are corrupted. Since 1947, there's incredible proof out there that we are not alone. And to think that we're the best that God can do, to me, is very arrogant and naive. 1947, there was an incident. They claimed that there was a crash. They put a press release out that said, saucer recovered.
It was actually July 7th, 1947, when the outside world found out something unusual had happened near Roswell, New Mexico. The headlines from the Roswell Daily Record shocked its readers with news of a captured flying saucer.
It was in all the papers, nationwide, worldwide, if you will, at that time. And then the next day, they brought out old Jesse Marcel. There's a famous picture of him holding like some cellophane and some sticks or something. Oh, we made a mistake. It was a hot air balloon. Now, how do you go from a saucer recovered to basically tissue paper?
Frank Kaufman was a civilian working for the Army 50 years ago, and he says he saw a crashed spaceship and alien bodies.
And we noticed one body was half in and half out of the craft. The other body was slammed up against the arroyo.
And then you go back to the Kennedy assassination. Good gosh, JFK was assassinated over 60 years ago, and yet they won't release anything on it. It's just, it's power, it's corruption, it's control, it's money. And those are all the things that really prop up Washington today.
Has the U.S. government become aware of actual evidence of extraterrestrial, otherwise unexplained forms of intelligence?
I like to use the term non-human. I don't like to denote origin.
I've talked to experts. I've seen testimony from astronauts. I've talked to fighter pilots, some of the best in the world, and they tell me that they've chased these craft. And yet the Pentagon says they don't exist, and now we're talking about throwing money at it, and all of a sudden they say they want to study it. You know, they lose billions of dollars every year. They've never passed an audit. And, you know, as I like to say, the Pentagon is a bunch of war pimps anyway. How can you trust that bunch? So the American public deserves transparency. We deserve to know what's going on. Had a conversation with somebody who called me over the weekend that was very high up in the Trump administration. They told me that I'd kicked a hornet's nest and that their words were, I needed to get some bodies around me. I take that very serious. You know, you're talking about upsetting the apple cart. And the Pentagon is billions and billions of dollars.
Is there any hesitation on your part to keep pushing forward on this?
Hell no. I'm not going to back down. It might cause me to lose an election, but it's not going to cause me to back down.
So George and I are going to go have a throwdown with Joe Rogan, the powerful Joe Rogan, talk about our favorite guilty pleasure, UFOs. Which I don't feel like is a guilty pleasure, and I don't feel like it's a rare conversation. This is like all we think about. For me, this will be, I think, like round 5 with Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan podcast. I'm super grateful because he makes a point to allow this conversation to happen.
Are you apprehensive at all that some of the stuff that they're releasing is bullshit?
Of course.
Of course.
Wait, who's releasing?
The Pentagon's talking about it when, you know, intelligent officials. You ever wonder whether or not it's disinformation?
I think it's a very healthy suspicion to have. My perspective is a little different in that people are always coming at me with fake information, like every day, all the time. Here's what I know. I know that there are people in government that want some level of disclosure on whatever this is without defining it.
We have a history of disinformation and misinformation put out to the public and to Congress by the intelligence community, by the Pentagon. They lie all the time. It's part of the turf. It's part of the job.
What has Grush said? Grush said they definitely have physical crafts.
Let me just set the scene for you with this hearing thing, right? I know when people think this is like orchestrated, man, we fought for every millimeter of doing that hearing. Like I personally did. So did George. And the idea was, what can we put out to the public and let everybody know this is important to us?
I think there are inescapable national security implications for this technology. There is a race for it. We're trying to get it. The Russians are trying to get it. The Chinese are trying to get it. Whoever gets it, they win.
It's hot as balls. I'll just put it that way. This is Texas during a heat wave. On the average day, this is the fucking average day. This is, I probably cursed too much, I'm sorry. This is an average day, man. You know, George and I, we work on this every damn day, and this is not a job that we get paid for. I actually have a real job, but luckily it's real estate. It's, you know, I buy and my wife and I fix up properties, so this UFO thing is because we want to know the truth. They say that when you look at things in retrospect, you know, hindsight is 20/20. Not really the case for me. I always thought I would be a martial athlete, mixed martial arts, training jiu-jitsu and wrestling and boxing. That's what I love. I never thought I would do anything else. Going from, you know, martial athlete to where I am today with investigative reporting and journalism, we are now at a critical moment, a critical point where the right questions are being asked by the right people. And let me tell you, it's a pressure cooker. It's not something that was planned. So my life is this Inspector Clouseau kind of journey where I'm constantly being misidentified as being qualified to be able to do something.
Jeremy, is it COBELL?
Yep.
Jeremy COBELL is an investigative filmmaker. He's on the right of your screen.
If even one of these sightings is real, and it is in fact a craft of origin from somewhere other than Earth, just one out of the millions, then we have a real phenomena.
Jeremy is not a guy who's going to soften his words. He's very straightforward about what he believes. He can be a little brash sometimes.
I think people are a little afraid of me because, you know, a little bit of a maniac sometimes.
But he's not somebody that you're going to scare off, and he doesn't really care too much about what people think about him.
This thing with George where we're running around the world kicking down doors, it has taken us to some weird places, man. I put more into this time-wise and financially than I will ever get back. And I'm at peace with that because I fucking love it. Because I love it. George and I get to talk with people and we get to hear just about one of the biggest questions there is. You know, what is going on with this UFO thing? I didn't know what I was doing, but I wasn't even a filmmaker yet. But I realized every time I pointed that camera at somebody, they would spill the beans. And I thought, well, if this camera is a passport into secrets, just holding a shitty little camera, then I gotta point this somewhere where it matters. And so I started filming this guy, John Lear, the godfather of conspiracy, one of the craziest old bastards I ever met, but one of the most likable.
We saw one of the government extraterrestrial UFOs fly over there.
These cattle mutilations, they take the hormones and the enzymes from those cattle and they spread it on their skin, and their skin absorbs the nutrients.
If you look right dead center of the moon, that is the sinus medae. And right in the middle of the sinus medae is a tower that stands 6 miles high.
And some of the shit he told me ended up being true. Unbelievable stuff about UFOs. So I had done that for quite some time, kind of under the radar, and I kept trying to get to George Knapp, call his news station. Hey, can I talk with George Knapp? This is Jeremy COBELL. He had no idea who I was. Trying to get to George. Couple emails here and there, always space them out 6 months, make sure I'm not, you know, being attacky. But yeah, I stalked the shit out of George. And then one day I get this call, I go, hello, and they go, hold for George Knapp. And I'm like, what? Like, remember, I'm trying to get to this guy for 2 fucking years, right? And I was like, holy shit, right? This is my one chance to impress upon George that I'm serious, that I want to know the truth, that I'm not being judgmental, that I'm kind of a filmmaker, like I've got a camera, you know? And I've been filming with John Lear, which was kind of George Knapp's gateway drug into UFOs too.
Hello and welcome to On the Record. My guest again this week is UFO researcher John Lear. Mr. Lear, nice to have you here again.
Always a pleasure to be here, George.
And there he is. This is George. And I was just like, okay, here we go. This is what I got. I just go, my name is Jeremy COBELL. I've been following this UFO thing for quite some time. I'm not a crazy person, I'm a normal person, but I do have a camera and I've been documenting this guy named John Lear. I really want to know the truth about UFOs. I have no preconceived notions. I just want to know, is Bob Lazar telling the truth? Is he not telling the truth? You've been the kingpin, the linchpin. You've reported this. You're a trusted person. I really just need to know, is there a way that you might be able to give me a briefing and basically tell me the landscape of this world so that I can understand it just a little bit better? The longest pause in telephone history. Then all of a sudden, I hear this kind of like, and I'm like, okay, so he's still on the phone. You know, okay, here I am. So he throws down about an hour plus telling me what he knows, what he suspects, what he can prove, what he can't prove, and where this might be going. He did that for me with all sincerity, not really knowing me from anybody. So from that day forward, man, we became friends quickly. So we are partners in our work together. He's my mentor. When we sit here and talk and you give me tutorship in a way, and I don't even know if you know you're doing it, but how to operate, how to navigate this world, it's really powerful for me. But he's also family to me, you know?
You can have all the degrees from Harvard that you want, or any other Ivy League school, or Oxford, or whatever, you know? But I tell you what is rare, someone who you can trust with your life, in terms of sharing information with, someone who gets it.
I was coming to do an interview for Weaponized, and then, you know, there was another meeting, and I can't talk about that on camera, but there was another meeting. I'm in a car with George, you're on speakerphone, and the camera crew is currently rolling. Is that okay? Absolutely fine.
You have to be prepared as a journalist to potentially go to jail to protect your sources. And I have no doubt that Jeremy would do that. There are a lot of people that speak to Jeremy behind the scenes and they trust Jeremy with their lives. You know, and this is a very, very serious thing because their lives could come under threat.
I know I saw it in the crowd there. My buddy Jeremy COBELL. Mr. COBELL says the UFO is emerging as a major topic of global importance. I can state that as a fact, so this is huge. This is worldwide.
There's some very good reporting being done, both in the mainstream media and outside the mainstream media. We live in an era now where to be a good journalist, you don't have to be attached to the Washington Post or the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. People like George Knapp and Jeremy COBELL have broken some really good stories.
Look, man, I am a patriot, but I'm also a pirate. So you have to understand something. People leak footage all the time to journalists, and sometimes it's military footage. And I think it's very powerful for the public to have something tangible to talk about, to analyze.
Tonight, a newly released video raising questions about the existence of UFOs. The man who posted the footage is documentary filmmaker Jeremy COBELL. He joins me now. Jeremy, good evening. The footage is incredible.
And putting out those videos does push us forwards in regards to the topic, because in terms of someone, you know, who's well versed in comms from my own background, I can tell you that having like an image or a video really propels the topic. And I think in terms of the UAP field, he's probably the best communicator that we actually have.
What's the latest and greatest in UFO information?
The world, in my opinion, has really changed since we started talking about this. These are not just claims. We have corroborative visual evidence. There are times when they have turned off or on our nuclear weapons, and this is well documented by our own military. It doesn't matter where these machines are from. We know they outpace, outmaneuver, and overperform any of our weaponry. This changes the fabric of our understanding of what it means to be human.
They're coming to you and wanting to discuss these things with you.
The world is creaking under the stress and the weight of the UFO reality. You know, look, ever since I started vetting David Grush, he's become a part of my life. We talk all the time. He came to George Knapp and me first. So from the very beginning, I've been vetting. He's become part of my life. So it's an ongoing dialogue and conversation. Look, man, reprisals are real. The effect of trying to silence people, that is absolutely real as well. Without getting into the weeds of the conversations that I have on a weekly basis of people wanting to come forward within agencies that have inked already their complaints officially through the system, to people like David Grush, who really just took it on the chin, came forward, said what he could say in that setting and said, I got a lot more, get me people authorized to hear it. Yeah, man, you're gonna take shots. And again, it's not just about having thick skin. You better truly, deeply be prepared to the core of who you are to take those hits. There are a variety of ways in which people get information to me. What I'm going to show you now is the footage was captured by our military in 2018. It's in Iraq over a sensitive facility. Why it caught my attention is because it was designated UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, by our intelligence agencies. And then it was treated with just spectacular secrecy. So it was important enough that this video was sent to me. It does not look like a traditional UFO, like a sphere or a saucer, but this shape has been seen since the beginning of UAP or UFOs. They call it the jellyfish UAP. It's in thermal. It was filmed on a weapons platform. You see that there's a dog there. See the animals are black. I'm assuming this is black hot. You see the object just went to white, and you'll see it going from white to black, white to black. And that's basically showing the heat differential. So it's going like hot and cold, hot and cold. The problem was the optics platform was jammed. These individuals who target with these platforms, they can shoot out an Al-Qaeda tire at 27 miles away, but not being able to lock it was one of the first signs that something's weird. I was able to find direct eyewitnesses and corroborate that this event did happen. When individuals would target in on it with the optics, the way it was described, each of these hanging things, they were stiff, like they weren't moving. They had geometric form, like scales. What was said to me is scales, like an armor. There were also people with night vision who were out and they were tasked to go look for it. Couldn't see it on the night vision. Only in the thermal spectrum could it be seen. But anything that looks like that appears to have a payload, that's a big deal. It could be dangerous, so these are high priority. But what happened is there were a couple other nations involved, and the feeds were shut, just shut immediately. So that put me on high alert too. Why is it completely being shut down? But that's not all it did. It goes out over a body of water. I'm told it stops on a dime, descends into the water, stiff into the water. And for 17 minutes, nothing. And boom, this thing comes up out of the water and shoots off at 45 degrees, just like that. It looks very much like what I've heard that has made incursions into nuclear facilities, because I know for sure, fact of the matter, there is footage from inside a nuclear facility, and I'll just say it, Pantex, that's the one, man. Something that appears identical to this moves between these nuclear silos and shot off again at a 45-degree angle. What it is, I don't know, but now, when it goes over a body of water, I do have some footage of that. This is when that same object, a jellyfish UFO, goes out over this like, you can kind of get an idea by that distance now how far these optic systems can reach. When it gets to that point where it's over the water, every source that I have talked with who is aware of this footage, that footage exists. You've got a UFO or UAP descends into the water stiff, comes back up, and then shoots off 45 degrees. Now, this was taken by an intelligence agency and buried. So I don't know, man. These are the cases that spark me. I don't know what this is. I just know when I get military filmed UAP footage designated where people risk getting that to me, I take it as serious as it sounds, and I try to get to the bottom of it. And it's hard, you know, but I do have a number of direct eyewitnesses now. What am I sitting on? Yeah, you and every other intelligence agency on planet Earth wants to know the answer to that question. Look, man, I will tell you this. Our government in the United States has always taken this seriously, dead seriously. I know for a matter of fact that the UFO topic is considered more important at a higher level of security than weapons of mass destruction.
Launch helo ASAP.
This has never been something that is adjacent to what's important to our intelligence agencies, to our own government and defense systems. This has always been right there front burner, whether they've admitted it or not.
Track 781 just sped up to 46 knots.
Maintain track as best you can.
The more and more that people try to clamp down on this information, it's having the adverse effect. More and more witnesses are coming forward, more and more whistleblowers, more and more people are calling me in confidence, telling me what I need to know to take the next step.
Yeah, man, this guy is not reporting TCAS. That is a unidentified flying object, bro. I can finally say I saw one now. That is cool.
Knowing the truth about what UFOs represent to humanity would change humanity completely. People speculate that our energy would change. It could be the survival of planet Earth if these technologies can do what we are recording them doing.
Oh, whoa. What is that?
But I think what UFOs represent to humanity is more important than UFOs themselves.
Oh my gosh! Look at it, it's beyond the tree. What is that?
Are we alone in the universe? No. Is it distant life somewhere else? No. They're coming here. And if that's the truth, how would it not transform everything about our world? How could it not?
If I was to tell you about David Grush 2 years ago, you would think I'm mad.
What I personally witnessed myself and my wife was very disturbing.
Is there any moment where you've kind of regretted speaking up?
I don't regret it. I didn't want to live in the Matrix.
You hear others claiming that it's an embarrassment to science. Mobs of scientists attack me personally.
The United States is not particularly friendly to whistleblowers. There have actually been some very, very odd and mysterious injuries and deaths. It makes you wonder, is there something going on here?
The UFO community is absolutely its worst enemy.
For me, it was almost like I was being pranked in a sense.
Make no mistake here, many people have stated that they've had such experiences.
Past the foot of my bed, there were two beings. Very quickly, the being off the foot of my bed started moving towards me. The other being raised its arm that had this wand in its hand towards me.
Have you had to be in fear for your life?
You do not talk about these things.
People are silenced. This was a bombshell.
Why would they be retaliating if what he's saying isn't true?